Welcome back to APT's coverage of Governor Ivey's 2025 State of the State Address. A lot of conversation tonight about crime and public safety. And joining me next to talk about that is the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency Secretary, Hal Taylor. Mr. Secretary, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Todd. Thanks for having me.
Well, your agency and your issues were really front and center tonight in terms of crime, public safety. I was kind of struck because it's probably been a long time since that issue, public safety, cracking down on crime, have been this prevalent in terms of talking about it in the legislature, a prominent place in the state of the state. Does that kind of speak to how seriously people are taking this around the state?
You know, Todd, I think it does. You got a good point. There's so much gun violence right now, and so many people with guns, and a lot of people are being killed by the guns, and with these switches that make them a fully automatic gun, a lot of people are getting shot by stray bullets, and we need to get those off the streets. And I think there's some legislation in place to try to do that, and I hope that we need that as law enforcement. We need that. Those machine guns, we don't need machine guns on the streets.
And right, that switch turns a regular Glock or maybe another handgun into practically a machine gun. So do you hear from police departments throughout the state and troopers about the problem that specific Glock switch problem is?
Well, I do, and from the feds as well. With ATF, they help us a lot with a lot of federal cases and gun crimes. They help us with taking guns that have been used in a crime and seeing if it was used in another crime. They have the ability to do that. And with the switch, it is, like you said, makes it fully automatic from pulling it every time to one time. And it's so hard to hold and handle that it's just going everywhere, and a lot of innocent people are getting killed.
Wow. Well, that's interesting because the fact that she mentioned it in State of the State, there's been, the question of, can people that are, huge supporters of the Second Amendment, gun, enthusiasts and everything, support any kind of measure on guns? But it sounds like, her coming out and supporting it, and the legislature is moving. This might be the year for that.
Yeah, I agree. I hope it is. We need that, and I appreciate her support, Speaker Ledbetter's support, and all the legislature. They have been really, really helpful with me, especially with the task force that we have here. The Max has worked really well, and we've had help with the City of Montgomery and Sheriff Cunningham, the county, the AG's office, and ATF as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because she mentioned it in the speech. We knew it was coming. Walk me through what y'all have been doing already. I mean, it's been making headlines, but maybe not so much recently. Talk about the work that you've been doing on these task forces and how it has improved public safety.
Yeah, so we have got probably 30 people on the task force, and we are targeting violent crimes, violent offenders, people with the stolen guns, carjacking, things like that. So we have been very successful here in Montgomery. We have about 2,000 traffic stops. We have initiated over 600 arrest warrants. We have arrested over 250 ourselves. We've taken 160 guns off the street. We found 75 of the machine devices that make the guns fully automatic and have federal charges on that. We got 100 total. So we're making a big difference. We're talking to people in ERs around here, the doctors and nurses. They're not seeing the gunshots. The victims who were shot coming in, the calls for violent crimes and things like that are way down here in Montgomery. So it's making a difference here in Montgomery for sure.
And so is the idea to replicate that in other cities, other areas that need it?
Yes, it is. That's what they want to do. The Speaker and the Governor want to have someone else that can go anytime. If you want to, if Birmingham calls or another city in the state or county and needs help, is to be able to take that replica that we're doing here and go to that city or county and start helping them immediately.
Well, it also costs money, so probably some budget line items and things like that.
Correct.
Isn't part of the issue that we do have a police shortage in some of these cities? There have been trouble recruiting police, so they may not just have the manpower in some instances to deal with violent crime.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Todd. So when we go into areas where numbers are down to try to help them, while they're trying to hire and get their numbers back up and get more police officers on the street. That's what we're doing, is trying to help them answer calls, work recs, do whatever we can. That's what we're doing here in Montgomery to help them while they're trying to get their numbers back up.
We'll talk about that as an issue. I think the speaker has talked about it. You heard the governor talk about it a little bit, about the trouble that maybe not just here but around the country in terms of recruiting police officers. What's behind that, and how do we get? Y'all have had pretty good numbers of classes lately at the trooper level, but how do we get around this hump in terms of being able to recruit more police officers? Is it a cultural kind of shift that needs to happen?
It kind of is. And the other thing is I hear a lot of people who want to know, do you have my back? If I go out here and I have a use of force case, do you have my back? Or am I going to end up in jail for something that I did that was right? So that's a big problem we have nowadays, is you see a lot of people who end up in a courts, in court or for
drug through the press.
Yeah, drug through, and they end up in jail, and where they possibly could have had a good use of force case, but the outcome was different. So when they see that, when people see that, they think, I don't want to be a police officer. I want to do something else. So we're, and the pay is good. We've gotten the pay up. The governor, the speaker have helped us get the pay up over the last several years. But it is just kind of a culture thing that when I came along, and a lot of people that work with ALEA now, it was their family. Like, there's generations there.
Yeah.
Their dad, their uncle, their granddaddy, may have been a trooper and worked there. And you see a lot of that, but you don't see a lot of that anymore with new hires.
That's interesting. Yeah, like the Blue Bloods show on Tom Selleck. Last question. I know it's getting late, but I wanted to ask you about the issue of juvenile crime, because she mentioned that in the state of the state. What are y'all seeing in terms of juveniles getting into criminal situations? I guess is that gang related?
Some of it is, Todd. I guess last week, or the first to the middle part of January, we had two 13-year-olds and a 14-year-old that we arrested for burglary, second-degree burglary. 2 weeks later, we had two teenagers, a 17-year-old and an 18-year-old, with carjacking. So somewhere we have got to figure out a way to get to these juveniles, whether it's get the parents involved, schools, or something to try to get them off the streets, because we've arrested 19 total out of those 250 that I told you, and out of those 600 arrest warrants. But they're out here, and we've got to figure out a way to get to them to try to get them off the streets and help them as the others.
Yeah, that's sad, and also speaks to a cultural thing. Well, look, I think you can say after tonight and all the talk that has preceded tonight on the issue of public safety, on the issue of crime, folks throughout the state of Alabama who have been concerned about violent crime, they can know that the legislature and the governor and you and your department are taking it seriously and taking action. I think a lot of people are really appreciative of that.
Yeah,
so.
Well, thank you, and we definitely are.
Yeah. Well, look, thank you again for coming on.
You're
we'll
welcome.
Be following up with you, because this is a big issue. We don't want just, the state of the state just tonight to be talking about it. We want to follow up and see, how things are going as the policy gets made. Yeah. So we'll be following up. But thanks again, Secretary
Sounds good.
Taylor.
You're welcome. Thank you, Todd.